This episode is brought to you by Private Internet Access. For the internet, to access.
Who's gonna tell him?
I vote you.
I don't want to tell him. You tell him.
No, you're louder and you're taller.
Those are stupid reasons.
No.
It's Sunday! Chick-fil-A's closed!
That didn't do anything.
Probably didn't say it loud enough.
Zombies have been done exactly 1 billion times, but they're always fun, especially when handled by Zack Snyder. And of course, we have his return to the genre coming up with Army of the Dead. And I really dug Dawn of the Dead, the remake that he did, so I'm excited to see what he does here. And of course, his visuals are always gorgeous, so there is that. But when watching a zombie show or film, you're bound to get a zombie horde. Whether you're watching The Walking Dead, I Am Legend, which I guess technically aren't zombies, but then there's World War Z or Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. You're inevitably going to see that massive group of undead headed toward the hero. So today, we're looking at how we can get that effect on little to no budget, with a throwback to a simple version and something a little more complicated like we showed in the open. But before we do that, I do want to thank our sponsor. And today's sponsor is Private Internet Access, which is a VPN that hides your IP address, encrypts your connection, and keeps you safe online. The bottom line is personal security online is more important than ever. I don't need to explain that to you. You already know. And that's where Private Internet Access comes in. It sends all of your traffic through a secure VPN tunnel. Your IP address is hidden and your data is encrypted. To be honest, the thing that I really love the most about a solid VPN is the extra entertainment. By connecting to servers in other regions, you can bypass geo restrictions to get movies and shows that aren't available in your area. And this works with all of the services like Amazon Prime, Hulu, Netflix, and games that might be blocked in your regions. But of course, it is nice to be responsible and do the safety thing too. And Private Internet Access is a secure VPN with over 30 million downloads around the world. They have a proven no logs policy, over 20,000 VPN servers in 70 plus countries. It's available on all of the operating systems you'd expect, like Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, Amazon Fire Stick, and Linux. And you can use one subscription on up to 10 devices at the same time. And it's super easy to use with multiple payment options like Bitcoin and gift card and 24/7 live customer support. And the icing on top of the cake is that they are PC Mag's editor choice. And to double up on that icing on the cake, if you use our link below, you can get a 2-year subscription for $2.59 a month, plus those 3 months free. So jump into the links below and get into securing your online data and open yourself up to a whole new world of entertainment.
And now, on with the show.
So again, we have done a similar concept in the past and in a very simple way. Around 7 years ago, we showed how with a small group of friends, you could create a crowd moving through your shot. The idea is just that you lock off the camera in one position, then have your talent move through the shot in different areas, each time changing their clothes. Now, granted, we should have had more wardrobe changes, but you get the point. After that, you take all your shots in and mask those groups together to make one large group. You could make this more complicated with a lot of roto and very tight groups, or more like we did here, keep it simple and you end up doing something that can easily be done in any editing software. And this concept works for several use cases, like placing crowds in football stadiums with just a handful of people, for instance. But we can get more complicated, like I said before, and build this shot out to something more impressive like our opening shot. And for that, we got this stock clip from Film Supply with this really nice reveal sort of camera move. And while the street is pretty empty, there is some movement like this car, for example. And we wanted to first get rid of that as it might show below the zombies as well as possibly ruin our camera track. We can remove this using After Effects Content Aware Fill tool. So with this clip in a new comp, we're going to create a mask around the car and keyframe it to move with the car throughout the shot. Then set the mask to subtract, and if you don't already see the Content Aware Fill panel, go to Window and check it to appear. There are different fill methods, but we will keep ours as object. The work area for the range relates to which part of the timeline it will create the fill plate in. Because this section is the only part with the car, we will move the end slider over so that the content aware only creates within this section. Then click Generate Fill Layer, creating this new layer and automatically generating each frame, which can take a while depending on how many frames required. Once it's complete, play through and see how it looks. In our case, it worked really well, but in some cases you might see some issues like mismatched lighting, in which case you can try altering your mask or some settings to try to get a better result. But like we've shown on the show before, their content aware fill is just, it's magic.
Behold!
For some of the parked cars, we have no reference to what is actually behind them, so for things like this, you can instead create a reference frame which will open up in Photoshop. Paint out the cars here manually. It doesn't need to be the best paint out in the world since there will be zombies blocking the visibility, then save and close. Now click Generate Fill Layer and it will map the Photoshop image into this space. After removing all the areas that we wanted, we then rendered this out as a new clip. Drop this into a new comp, and because our shot is moving, we will need to 3D track it by right-clicking, Track, and stabilize track camera. Once that is complete, scrub through and choose a point which looks fixed and remains throughout the shot for a long time. Then right click, create camera, and null. For the zombies, we're using Mixamo.com, which is free for Adobe users. They offer a lot of different character designs, including a few zombies we can find by doing a quick search. Once you choose a character, you can then select an animation. Again, they have a lot relating to zombies. For our zombie horde, we wanted them to stand pretty idle like the shot in Army of the Dead. So we're going to download the FBX for this and then do the same with multiple models to add some variety to the crowd. Altering some animation parameters too for further variety. We used a total of 7 different zombie characters for that variation. To use these in Element 3D, we need to first convert them from FBX files, and we can do this in Blender, which is free software, and we just jump in here and import the FBX. Check to see where the last animation frame is and alter the timeline length to match. Then export as an OBJ and check animation. This creates an individual OBJ for each frame of animation, so it's best to create a new folder for each character and call the export something distinctive. To get the materials, go into the UV editing tab, and this dropdown shows all of the individual textures which you can manually export. Once this process is done for each character, we can jump back into Adobe After Effects and create a new solid. Apply Element 3D and open Scene Setup. Go to File, Import 3D Sequence, navigate to one of the folders that was exported to, and select the first OBJ in the sequence, then click OK. If you can't see anything, check Normalize Size and change the alignment to bottom. To add the textures, drop down this arrow to show the model materials, and you'll see how many are used per model. This one has 2, one for the top half and the other for the bottom. These will both use different textures that we saved from Blender, so apply them in the corresponding areas until your model is fully textured. And then move and rotate them in a random layout to make a little group of zombies. Then create a new group folder set to 2 and create a plane. This will be our ground. Back in After Effects, this element scene will now automatically be in our 3D camera tracked scene. Under World Transform, you can change the rotation a bit to see easier depending on your shot and playthrough to get a sense of where Element 3D is in your scene. Each tracked scene will be different. For us, the zombies are floating in the air really close to the camera. To change this, we're going to alter the world position and rotate by eye. Under Group 2, Particle Look, you can increase the ground plane size and use this as a guide to align with the street. And this looks like the right location for our scene. To turn this group of zombies into a full horde, go into Group 1 Particle Replicator and change the replicator shape to plane, then increase the particle count. Increasing the shape's scale and X and Z values control the area size. The scatter properties scatter the group of zombies into random directions, and the noise properties do a similar thing. And random seed randomizes the placement of these groups. We spent a while changing these settings and using the world scale to get the right look we were after. Under Particle Look, you can control the rotation values, which can have your horde bend to your will. and you have more scatter and noise controls here to use for further variety. Enabling multi-object gives control over each individual zombie of the group to alter even further, and there are no set values to this. We just tried changing every value and seeing if it helped vary the scene. For the ground, scale up Group 2 and inside Element use a shadow matte material. Then in render settings, enable ambient occlusion to add some ground contact shadows. Just don't make it too harsh. To fill these sides of the street, we can go into Element and duplicate the group, then change it to number 3. Back in After Effects, copy Group 1, then paste it into Group 3. This copies over all our previous settings. Now, just change the size, amount, and other settings to place them going horizontally instead. You can do this for other areas which may need filling too by duplicating again and changing to Group 4, then pasting and altering and setting each time to fill the scene. To bring these buildings back to the foreground, duplicate the footage and create a new solid set to 3D. Find the rotation and placement to match the buildings, then scale up and roto to match. Set the footage to alpha matte and keyframe the mask and rotation to tweak throughout the timeline if it changes. Do this for any area that needs to be in front of the zombies. We also did this for the lights too. We're gonna color match by eye using a curves effect to change the brightness and color. In Element, you can also use a fog effect, selecting a color in the distance and altering the settings just to add a faint haze going into the distance. Lastly, we added some spotlights to hit certain areas of the Horde, matching the lights and billboard in the background plate and adding some glow on an adjustment layer above. And now we have a full zombie horde in our scene, and remember, you can have as many or as few zombies as you need by changing the particle count, or add a dark grade and pop the lights to create a creepy night scene. But one thing worth noting, which is a very basic filmmaking 101 trick that we used to tie Josh and Emily to the scene, is that we originally wanted to add them on top of a CG building, but once we realized we didn't have the time in post and only 30 minutes to shoot that scene, we opted for a perspective trick. So I just had them stand on a ladder on the other side of my fence and shot looking up at them. This gives the impression that they are high up. Then we mix that with some sound and it sells pretty well.
It's Sunday! Chick-fil-A's closed!
Perspective is one of the most fun and simple things to toy around with. It's insanely easy to use and can be used for everything from making someone larger or smaller or faking height or distance. We've done all of the above in the past, like making a giant or placing a tiny helicopter model in our scene. And don't get me wrong, I would have much rather have done our original idea, but nothing ever goes to plan in filmmaking. But that's it for today. We pinned a comment down below asking what kind of effect or topic you would want us to cover. So if there's something you want to see, do that commenting thing. And while you're down there, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button so that you know whenever we put up new content, especially next week since it's our 1000th episode, which is insane and hard to wrap my head around. But until then, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.